About 7 years ago, when I was 17, my parents went out of town for a weekend and left me at home. This was a pretty common occurrence as my parents trusted me. I would usually spend these weekends away, staying with friends or family, as my parents' house is a bit creepy to be alone in, even during the day. We live in a small rural town where everyone knows each other, and generally it's pretty quiet and safe. Saturday, I was supposed to stay with a friend, but her parents decided at the last minute not to let me stay. It wasn't a big deal that I had to leave. I was somewhat prepared to have to go home, because her parents got weird about company sometimes. I left her house, which is about 15 minutes from my parents' house, around 9:30 or 9:45. While I was on the way home, I got a weird feeling that I can't really explain. I just knew that I didn't want to go stay at my parents' alone. I called my brother and asked if I could stay with him. At the time, he was living with a woman who had a small child. He told me it'd be quieter and easier for him to just come stay with me, since his dog would bark if I tried to come in the house. He said he would be at our parents' house in 20 minutes. Side note that's relevant later. My brother's a relatively scary looking guy. He's about 6'3", 200 pounds, pretty muscular, and covered in tattoos. After hanging up, I decided to stop at a gas station and grab a snack before going home, so my brother would be there when I got there. I pulled into the gas station. There were only a few cars in the lot, which is typical, because this is a small town in the rural south, where everything pretty much stops after 8 p.m. I parked and walked up to the door. There was a man standing outside the door smoking. He opened the door for me without saying anything. This is normal Southern hospitality, especially since I'm a female. I smiled and thanked him. Inside, there was another man standing by the door. I noticed him staring at me as soon as I came in. He gave me that gross up and down look and said something to the effect of,
"Hey sexy, what are you doing alone?"
Creepy as fuck. I just ignored him and walked toward the back of the store. He yelled after me and called me a bitch. I still ignored him. I figured he was drunk or high or just an asshole. Most people around here talk a big game, but rarely back it up. I wasn't scared, just annoyed. I got my snacks and paid at the counter. When I walked back to the door, both the men were gone. I was happy to not have to deal with any more catcalling. I began walking across the lot toward my car, which was probably 100 feet away from the door. As I was walking, I looked down at my phone to see if enough time had passed for my brother to already be at my parents'. When I looked up, the asshole who had hit on me was standing at the pump staring. I looked at him for a second and continued walking.
"Hey, you know you're supposed to answer a man when he speaks to you,"
he said. I remember saying something snarky back to him and getting into my car. He looked pretty pissed at my sarcasm. I locked my doors as soon as I was in my car, started it, and was thinking of nothing but getting home to eat my snacks and hang out with my brother. I put my car in gear and realized the man had disappeared. I looked around before pulling out of my parking spot, only to realize that both men were sitting in a car facing mine across the lot. They were both staring at me and talking, occasionally even pointing toward me. I just stared at them, defiant and pissed. I didn't want them to think they scared me at all. While we were sitting having our staring contest, the man who opened the door for me smiled and gave me the finger across the throat gesture, as in, "You're dead." I rolled my eyes and pulled out of the gas station, annoyed. To my dismay, they pulled out behind me. I hadn't been scared up until this point because, as I said, most people here are a lot of talk with no follow-through. Instead of going home, I took a few back roads that connect back in a sort of circle to see if they were really following me, which, of course, they were. When they realized I was testing them, they drove up really close to me and started laying on the horn. I couldn't see their headlights, they were so close. I called my brother and told him what was going on. He told me to come home and he would handle it. I started driving home. The two assholes were still on my ass blowing the horn. Even with my detours, I was only about 3 or 4 minutes from my parents' house. I slowed down to pull in the driveway, and I was immediately relieved. At the end of the driveway, my brother was standing shirtless, with his shoulders back, hands crossed in front of his stomach, clearly holding a pistol, his intimidating looking pit bull sitting by his side. I drove around him into the yard. The two guys actually started to pull in behind me until they saw my brother. Then they hightailed it out of there. I have no idea what they would have done if I had stopped somewhere alone or kept driving. I always think fondly of that image of him standing there like a badass, ready to protect me. I'm truly thankful he was there. When I was younger, every year for Christmas, I would drive upstate to my aunt's house along a stretch of highway. I cannot, for the life of me, remember the name of this road. All I know is it runs nearby Akron, New York at some point. However, most of the drive is through rural areas, with little to no towns nearby. So, it was the dead of night, and my groggy self had gotten off a long shift and had to drag my ass to my aunt's house, since my extended family was expecting me the following morning. Near halfway through the drive, I realized I was low on gas, which irritated me. My brother told me he had filled it up the day before, so either he forgot or he was straight lying. I saw an archaic looking sign for a gas station off the next road. It wasn't an official road sign, literally a pole with a slab of metal attached with "Gas station off next exit" or something along those lines painted on it. That seemed a little sketchy, but people do the same thing with fruit stands on highways, so whatever. I pulled off the next exit onto some dilapidated, country-ass road through dense woods. The whole thing was creepy and surreal. I kept expecting Leatherface to come running out of the trees with a chainsaw. Anyway, eventually, I came to the gas station and realized quickly it hadn't been open for years. It was all rusted, and the convenience store's roof was caving in. The gas pumps had all been taken out as well. I pulled over next to it and checked my gauge. I would probably only make it another half mile before running out, so I called AAA and they said they sent a truck over. Now, I play the waiting game. I left my engine on because when the headlights were off, everything was pitch black, and my paranoid self wasn't sitting next to an abandoned gas station in the middle of a forest in complete darkness. So, most of the wait went uneventful until I sensed movement around the side of the old store, where my lights are pointed. I look up, but didn't see anything more, so I look back down at my phone. Then, over the sounds of the night, I hear someone yell,
"Hey buddy, come here."
I look up, and I shit you not, there's a dude standing by the old store, looking toward me, illuminated by my headlights. He looked like a run-of-the-mill homeless guy. I was honestly spooked, and figured he must have been squatting there. Still watching him, I rolled down my window and yelled something like, "Yeah, what's up?" Still mentally crapping myself. I had my foot ready to floor it out of there at the first sign of trouble.
"You got any change?"
"Nah, I don't. Sorry, man." I look up at him. He has this kind of vacant expression and is standing stiff. Then, I see more movement. There are heads. About 20 or so heads, peeking around trees beyond the man I'm talking to. I can't see them clearly at all, but they're definitely people. Literally just heads staring in my direction from around the trees. I see another guy beginning to walk up from around the gas station, and then I turned around and sped off. I got as far away from that place as my tank could carry me, and updated AAA on my location. The driver came back over and filled me up, and I didn't say anything. but after he left, I wanted to call the cops, so I called the nearest town's sheriff department. They said they'd send a trooper over, and I gave them the location. When I got to my aunt's house, they called me back and said whoever was there was gone, but they could tell a large number of people had been living there for a while. Blankets, canned food, the usual. The whole situation still freaks me out, but frankly, I can consider myself lucky. I'll always have a creepy story to tell. I'm just glad nothing bad happened. So, to the creepy dudes at the gas station, let's not ever meet. When I was 17, 18-ish, I was driving home from a friend's house after a movie marathon. It was around 1 a.m. when I left, and a decent drive. Not quite halfway, my gas light came on. I had had a few creepy catcall experiences at gas stations, and was a little paranoid stopping that late in the middle of nowhere as a 110-pound teenage girl. In the end, I think if I wasn't so cautious, I could have been kidnapped or killed. The first gas station I came across was well lit, and was in a pretty open space. I drove up to the pump and looked around my car mirrors before getting out. As I was starting to pump gas, this normal-looking guy comes out of the gas station shop and starts smoking a cigarette. The pump kept clicking off and not working, so I started messing with it, trying to get it to pump. This guy starts watching me, laughing. I assumed he was just laughing to himself, watching a teenage girl trying to pump gas. After getting maybe a quarter of a gallon, I gave up and moved to a new pump. At this point, if I didn't do absolutely everything I did, I think I would have been screwed. When I got back into my car, I locked my doors just to drive to the other pump. I checked all my mirrors before getting out or shutting off my car again. It was an old 90s Beetle that didn't always start right away. That's when I saw the guy walking up to my car. He was smiling, walking up to the driver's side window. Not wanting him next to me, I rolled down the passenger window. He paused for a moment, then smiled to himself and walked to the passenger window. He stuck his head all the way inside my window to talk to me.
Hey, I know this seems really weird, but I promise I'm not a creep or anything. My car broke down.
He pointed to a red SUV in the parking lot.
And I need a ride home. It's just half a mile up the road.
Sorry, but I don't know you.
Oh no, I totally get it. I thought it was pretty weird as I was walking up here. But it's only like half a mile up the road. I'm totally stranded.
I wish I could help you, but I really don't know you.
Yeah, I got you. If you had a truck or something, I'd offer to ride in the back.
He looked expectantly. Sorry, no. All of a sudden, his demeanor flipped. He looked totally pissed. He yanked at my door, but I had locked it before. Then, he reached for my inside door handle through the window. My car was still running, and I slammed it into first and peeled out as he opened the door. The car taking off slammed it shut, and I sped off. I called the police after I got away. They looked at the gas station cameras, and right after I left, he got into his red SUV and drove off. If I hadn't locked my doors the second time, I think I would have been fucked. If I let him come to the driver's side window, he could have grabbed me. If I had shut my car off, I wouldn't have been able to drive off in time. And if I didn't double check my mirrors, I would have been outside my car when he came up to me. So, as a bit of background, my family lived a state away from me, and at the time that this happened, I had just turned 18. I'm now a 21-year-old female, and my mom would finally let me drive to go see them, which was about a 5.5-hour drive. No biggie. I was like, bet, I can smoke some weed and drive that easily. And I did just that. About halfway there, I needed to stop and get gas and snacks. As you can guess, I had the munchies. I wasn't very familiar with the drive, or where the gas stations were on it, and they were kind of spread out, so as soon as I felt like it wasn't smart to wait until another gas station came up, I pulled off the highway. I have always been sort of suspicious of people in general, because I have not had an easy childhood, and I grew up learning to just kind of feel when things aren't right. So I wasn't really worried about being by myself, because I knew how to handle myself. So, I pulled up to this relatively empty gas station. Maybe one or two other cars, but it was a larger one with one of the antique shops in it. I parked at a pump, locked my doors, and went inside. There was no one at the counter yet, and a sign was on the counter saying that they'd be right back. So I go pick out a snack and a drink. Well, when I had previously walked in, I noticed a man who appeared to be in his late 20s, kind of just wandering in the store. I saw him glance over at me when I walked in, but didn't really think about it. I wasn't really paying him any attention. I went in and opened the door to the soda, and was perusing them, when he comes right up next to me and opens the one next to mine. This wasn't particularly weird to me, but the fact that he was literally all the way across the store when I came in, and then as soon as I go over here, he does too. I was like, okay, I'm gonna go look for a different drink. So I go to the tea section and stand there for a sec, and he follows me to the one right next to mine again. Only this time, he looks at me, smiles a creepy ass closed lip smile, and says,
Hi.
I don't want to say that, even though he could have easily just have been trying to be nice or flirt or something. I had an instant creepy vibe from him when he first walked over, and that intuition has never failed me before. At this point, I just look at him, nod my head, grab something, and go to the counter, thinking to myself that I can grab a snack later. He comes right up behind me with one of those jerky sticks. Literally didn't even grab anything from the refrigerators that he was looking in right next to mine, and just stands super close to me. I mean, he was right up behind me. I could feel his body heat and his breath on the back of my neck. I'm literally just wanting this fucking cashier to come in here so I can get the fuck away from him. So I start calling for someone. No one answers or comes out. Dude's behind me texting on his phone and looking around and at the door like he's waiting for someone. Finally, I'm like, fuck it, I'm out. I leave my drink on the counter and I walk out, and he follows me. At this point, I literally run to my car, and I remember feeling him grasp my jacket, but with the momentum of my arm swinging, he couldn't get a firm hold. I hop in and lock the doors, turning my car on in record speed. We make eye contact, and out of the corner of my eye, I see two men run from around the corner of the gas station. They all three run toward my car, which isn't very far from where the first guy is, and I just floored out of there, almost wrecking my car in the corner. I don't know what they were planning on doing, but I imagine I was about to get kidnapped. I called the police because I didn't know where the cashier was, and I just had a bad feeling that they did something to them. The guys were gone when the police got there, and I now carry my knife on me whenever I go on that drive. So, creepy dudes, let's not meet ever again.